Hello, everybody. So I hope that you all got a lot out of that starting session. So we're going to talk a little bit about analytics and data products and how generative AI, kind of fits into that. So I've got a little bit of a kind of a level set of how we're thinking about it, and then we'll actually show you some stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and let's make sure that you can all see what I'm doing. Okay, so it seems to want to put it in the other. Sorry, I've got multiple screens here, so. I'm gonna have to move things from one to the other. Okay. So hopefully now you can see my screen. So the starting point to all this is maybe to kind of think about what are the problems that our customers are really trying to solve, right? And then from there, we can think about how data products and how generative AI fits in. So, what's incredibly true and unfortunate is how often chief data officers indicate they're not achieving success with their goals today. So, one of our key questions is going to be, how do we solve for that? And when we drill into the problems, we find that a lot of users or leaders are saying that access to quality data is their number one problem. We also hear a lot about the inability to reuse work that they've done, and that they're seeing inconsistent results downstream. And so I think what we're really focused on is how do we address that, right? And so when we think about the environment, we think about four things that we need to really be focused on. First of all, we do need data products, right? So if we don't have access to quality data, nothing else is going to matter. And we certainly think that distributed access to data wherever possible also makes sense, which is what we just have been talking about. But in addition to that, we really see empowerment of business teams as critical to this environment, right? So in the centralized world that many of us came from, part of the problem that we faced was the effort to centralize data. But the problem that we often don't recognize is that we also tried to centralize analytics. And I think we really need to think about these two things differently, right? That more and more of the analysis and the use of that data is going to be at the edge of the business. The data products are going to underlie that usage, but we've got to be able to empower people to use the data themselves. And then those same users have got to be able to collaborate, right? So it's one thing to have people be able to use data themselves, but if they're off on islands on their own, we're in the world that we've been in with a million Excel spreadsheets that everybody's doing their own thing. So we need collaboration, and then we need to be able to take the best of those results and promote them so that they're standards and reused. And so when we think of a data product, a lot of times we think about something like store sales. But sometimes we also are thinking about something like lost opportunity analysis, which is a business calculation. And that's going to come from the business. It's going to be built on top of, of those data products. So, when we ask leaders why is data quality such a problem? Data ownership is foundational in the fact that data is spread everywhere. And we've just really been kind of talking about the whole data product story. So I'm not going to, belabor that point. But the characteristics that are going to be important, and this is really critical if we're going to make generative AI work, and it can work, is that they're discoverable and accessible, they're understandable. So the AI engine is going to have to be able to read the data in a natural language manner, either the data or its metadata. It's got known quality, so we know that it's going to meet certain standards. It has some timely delivery, and it's clearly defined security. And these are the things that we think about and we see our customers wrestling with, in addition to that larger discussion we've had. Now, in our world, we think of data products as a pyramid, right? So at the bottom, you have, let's call them native data products. They're aligned with a domain. They're focused on making quality data available, and they retain their granularity. So one of the most important things about what's happening with data is that we don't know all the usages, all the usage of data when we start a program. And so separating, what we used to do in a data mart where we built the data and the analytics all together, we want to separate those things. We want granular data that can be available to support the analytics we know about today and the analytics we don't know about, right? And this is really kind of the province of that data product team, traditional data product team that we're starting to talk about. There's also this whole set of analytics to get built on top of that, right? So it's store sales or lost opportunity, or maybe it's the rate of churn for a certain type of customer. These are business analytics, and oftentimes they evolve over time, and they're built and defined by the business on top of those data products. So when we think about how we think about implementing a data product strategy, we start with, let's start by making native data products available. And then let's think about how we can create collaboration and reuse and sharing to start to build business value and domain knowledge on top of that structure. Now, generative AI and analytics. So it does have enormous potential. And, I'm going to show you some stuff that we're doing today. And it's going to allow, business people to ask questions of data and greatly improve their results, and do so in a kind of natural language way. And it's going to enhance the productivity of engineering teams. However, if we don't have quality data to start with, then generative AI is really not going to solve our problem. So we talked about this a little bit in the last session. It's really critical that we get the data right if we're going to apply generative AI to it. So if you have a table that's cussed underbar str, well, a generative AI engine isn't going to know about that. If there's two variations of that table, it's not going to know which table to use and which definition to get. So if we're going to empower end users to use generative AI, we really kind of have to have a data product architecture under the hood where we have readable terms, we have consistent definitions, and that's going to be a basic requirement. We also want to be able to ingest domain knowledge, right? So maybe there's a gross margin calculation that a generic engine might understand, but you've got business domain specific analysis that you want to be used. And if generative AI is going to work for most organizations, you're going to need the ability to ingest those domain definitions into your model, and to do so in a private manner. And then finally, generative AI is not deterministic, so it needs guardrails, right? So, kind of if you played with these tools, and we're going to play with one a bit here, you'll see that it doesn't always answer the same question in the same way. And so it's critical that we have a way to implement guardrails. So, what do we see as the path to success, and the path that we've been on and our customers are on? So, you need to choose a model and tools that are going to work with that model. So they're really kind of two different things, right? So you might be using ChatGPT in a private, fashion from Microsoft. You might be using like a tool like ours or some other to access that. Those need to be decided. If you're going to be successful, you're going to have to be able to ingest this domain knowledge, right? So if you can ingest your business rules, the ability to ask a question is going to be restricted. And you need to have guardrails so that the engine doesn't provide the wrong answers to the wrong questions. And then where do you start? So if you have quality data and you've made that, a function you've already worked on, then you can start with data analysis, right? And you're going to be able to answer questions directly of the data in an English language manner. And that the power of that is going to evolve as you develop more domain knowledge in what we think of as a catalog of questions. On the other hand, if you're still if you don't feel like you have quality data available, then you really need to go back and start with the data product development and the engineering process of how you're going to get that data to a point where it's going to be available. And, I think it was said in the earlier session, but these generative tools actually can do quite a bit in improving the development of that process. And then finally, you think of kind of what we think of as business users who are really out at the far edge. And you really are going to only approach business users effectively with generative AI when you've done the other two, right? You've built your data products, you have your data analysis and your domain information available. And when you do that, then you're in a position to start to unleash generative AI to business users. So, I mentioned what we are. We're a collaborative data workspace. We provide access to all kinds of different data platforms and object stores, including the data platforms that were talked about, the distributed ones today. We support a SQL and a scripting language to create usable, composable objects. We have a catalog for reuse and governance, and we have discovery, scheduling, ingestion kinds of capabilities. And we've built an AI assistant into our workspace. I'm going to show you that today. Using ChatGPT as a model, and we're in the process of adding additional models and a private model which is in beta now that will ingest both domain knowledge, guardrails, and your own database in such a way that nobody else has access to it. And for the example that I'm going to produce today, we're going to use this a little retail set of data with stores and products and customers, and orders and payments, et cetera. So that will be what we're going to work from. So let me bring my tool into a place that you can see, and then I'll explain to you what we're doing. And just give me a minute to get this into a place. So this is just our workspace. And in our workspace, we can essentially write any SQL or composable object. We have a discovery panel that lets us find objects, much like perhaps a part of what the store that was talked about, notifications. We have a database explorer to see what our data is. We have a catalog, but we're really going to focus on the AI assistant. So I have this retail data model that we talked about, and perhaps I'm going to ask a question of that data that is, I want to know what the sales are by store and product. So if I ask the generative AI engine to give me the ability to answer that question, I'm doing this now actually in real time. It's going to give me a query, and I can run this query and directly see the results. So, what's powerful about a model like this is that we can ask a business question when we have quality data, available. Now, that's kind of interesting, but perhaps I want something a little more complex, and I want to see gross margin, and I want to see that both in terms of dollars and percent, and I want to add that to my result set. So, I've simply just added that to the context. I haven't had to redefine what I asked the model to do before. I've given it some additional, kind of information, and I'm just going to use a second tab here so that we can, if anybody wants to, we can kind of go back through what the results are, and I can ask the model to answer a question like this as well. Now, here I've got, in addition to the products in the stores, I've got my sales quantity, I've got dollars. Now I have gross margin, dollars and percent, and perhaps I could say, well, actually, let's format gross margin percent with two numbers after decimal. It's probably not the most efficient way to ask it to reformat that, but it's just the kind of example of the kind of thing that you're able to do. So what's interesting about this example is I have ingested the data model into this implementation of ChatGPT. So I'm not just generating a generic query, I'm generating a query against my data set, and I don't have to do anything to tell it to do that, and then it can answer that question. Now, in this case, what's also been interesting is I've asked it to do a gross margin calculation, and actually we've done no additional training of the model to come up with that gross margin calculation. It's just a generic calculation that ChatGPT already knew about. However, let's be clear, you're going to have business definitions that go well beyond what ChatGPT knows about. So that's where the ability to ingest, domain-specific information into your model is going to be key to your success. So just as an example, through my session here, I've got it to fix the formats of what I'm doing. So think of it this way from a business standpoint. If you have a quality data product, and you start to think about ingesting the schema and the domain knowledge into your model, you're going to be able to start to ask business questions that are going to generate sometimes very complex queries. These are some simple examples, but hopefully you see where this is going. They're going to get you some sophisticated capabilities. Now, but if you're building a data product, you might have you might decide that, well, actually, I'm going to support a star schema to feed under a BI tool, and I want to generate that structure. And any of the types of structures that you have in your business, you will be able to train your generative AI model to understand those structures and to generate output in those structures. So I've asked it here to generate for me a star schema from the data that I've already had, and it's gone off and done that for me without any additional kind of effort on my side. So it turns out that the model actually knows about this type of structure. And so when you think about how you're going through an engineering process, which is more complex, as you think about how generative AI is going to affect your world, the ability to train the model to do these kind of complex kind of functions, and to do so in a way that is specific to your architecture. Or if I wanted to teach it to use our script language to build in the testing automatically to a data product, then I can do so. So, and I might, as an example, also say, well, what if I wanted to, refresh all of the dimensions in this model? So let's say I ask the generative engine to write the SQL to generate a complete refresh of the dimensions in my relational data model. And it's going to go off. It now knows about the source data. It knows about the new dimensional model that we've built. And it's actually going to generate for me the complete transformations that I need to do this. So, kind of what I wanted to really get across here is that, from our standpoint, data products are the foundation to using generative AI, that we can use generative AI to speed up the analysis process, and ultimately even to help us build our data structures. The development of the analysis downstream depends upon data products with well-formed, clearly defined data, regardless of the platform. Now, in this case, I'm hitting a Snowflake database. I could be hitting Starburst. I could be hitting any number of different sources. But the key here is that I've got a well-defined set of data that I'm, going to ask my business questions about. And then on the engineering side of the building of the data products, it's about being able to teach the model your architecture, your approach to the schema, and to start to think about using these models to help you write that kind of output. So, what we're already seeing, we've released now this integration with ChatGPT. We are in the process of releasing the private models with the domain, knowledge that you can ingest. We just see that as changing the speed of which our customers are going to be able to do this type of work. So I'm going to stop right here and see who's got questions. And I might also ask, so I see Phil, you've asked the question, is the session feed showing? I'm not sure. Yeah, it looks like we've answered that question, and you've been able to see that. So great for that. And it looks like, in fact, we don't. Are you able to apply unstructured data? So in our world, we are, we use the SQL interface, right? So today we're talking to data using SQL, and anything that talks SQL, we can talk to. Many of the, no code or the NoSQL databases, in fact, talk SQL to unstructured data. But we're in this world, we are talking primarily to structured data, and we're talking through SQL. But this, the premise applies more broadly, right? So, I think you will be able to do that, but that's really not our world today. Phil, anything else? What are you guys using generative AI in your environment, and what's your own sense of what you're doing with data products? Maybe you can, I don't know if I can let you speak, but maybe you can tell us if you're using generative AI just yourselves in your own environment. Okay, so I think that we have, we've covered off on this this session. I hope that was helpful. We'll move over to our tabletops, which I think the timing for that is right now. So thank you for attending this session.